Thanks for listening to this final lesson introduction on Daniel chapter 12, entitled The End of the Matter. I hope these lesson introductions have been helpful to you. Please have your study guide and a pen handy so you can write some notes in the side margins. Now let's look at the big idea in this lesson, which is this. The horrific events that will occur during the second half of the Great Tribulation, events unlike anything the world has experienced, should compel all believers to share the gospel with the lost. In chapter 11, God reveals two persecutions of Israel, one past and one future. The second or final persecution of Israel will also include the outpouring of God's wrath upon an unbelieving world. Learning about both of these persecutions of Israel from Daniel's perspective would have troubled him greatly. During the second half of the Great Tribulation, Satan, working through the Antichrist, will unleash a time of trouble unlike the world has seen to prevent the return and reign of Christ. In chapter 12, verse 1, God warns Daniel about the severity of this time of trouble. Daniel is assured that the Lord will deliver those who have their names written in the book. These are people who have come to salvation during the Great Tribulation. The remainder of chapter 12 commends those who win the lost to Christ, and it provides some interesting but limited information about the transition from the end of the Great Tribulation and the death of the Antichrist to the eternal state. This brings us back to the big idea in this lesson, which is this. The horrific events that will occur during the second half of the Great Tribulation should compel all believers to share the gospel with the lost. Now, if I led this final lesson in Daniel, here's how I would approach it. There are 14 questions in this lesson, not counting the 7 additional review questions. I would leave ample time for the review questions for 2 reasons. Number 1, the participants will gain a better understanding of the content of the book of Daniel by reviewing the book. And 2, the participants should gain some much-needed confidence at the end of this challenging study. Hopefully, they'll come away from the book with the idea that this has been a profitable endeavor. It will be interesting to see how many of them will be able to answer the review questions. Hopefully, they will be able to get all of them. Next week, the group will be going through the final exam. If I was leading the study, I would be thinking about how to present it. If I had been presenting it in the past, I may consider having someone else lead the group through it. Or perhaps I'd have the group pair up in twos and have one person present the final exam to another person and then observe them doing it. I would also remind the group about the open house and encourage them to continue inviting new people. Lastly, I would remind the group to make sure they ordered their new Lampeter's books. I sincerely hope these lesson introductions on the book of Daniel have helped you lead in such a way that God is glorified and lives have been changed forever into the image of Jesus Christ. Thank you so much for serving the Lord as a Lampeter's leader.